why does my pronunciation of this vowel sound like that vowel? I think there's a couple of reasons. The first one being that those sounds are kind of alike anyway. For those unfamiliar with those symbols, this is the IPA vowel chart. So the symbols on the right are more towards the back of the mouth, with the ones on the left more towards the front, and the ones at the bottom are with an open mouth. And the two symbols in question are these two right here. So they're already kind of like each other because they're right next to each other on the chart. But also remember that these aren't options that these sounds have to fit into. It's not just one or the other. In reality, most of us are probably pronouncing something in the middle, maybe even something a little more towards the center as well. And just because this one is all the way on the bottom doesn't mean I have to pronounce it with my mouth as wide as possible. When we're pronouncing these, we're not using our tongue and jaw's full range. The differences can actually be relatively small. So especially if you're looking at the difference between two sounds that are already right next to each other, the differences could be very minimal in the first place. Same thing for roundedness. The symbols on the right are with rounded lips and the ones on the left are unrounded, but it's not one or the other, right? You have this entire range that you can play with. So in other words, you could have two people pronouncing two different words with the same IPA transcription, but in reality, their pronunciation does still have quite a few differences. This isn't a 100% precise measure. They're just reference points so we can talk about linguistics. There are other symbols that can make things a bit more detailed and more specific, but I tend not to use those in my videos because I'm not usually going for that kind of level of detail in my videos. I'm just trying to explain some basic things. So if one sound sounds kind of like another, maybe it just sounds like it, maybe it is the other sound. Allophonic variations can also make a difference, so how I pronounce it in the middle of a sentence might be different than how I pronounce it in isolation, and it's not intended to be 100% precise.